Hey class, welcome to another lab. In this lab, we're going to be talking about user testing, and we're going to set up a survey that we can send to our testers to give us some feedback about the game that we've created so far. And we will sort of use that feedback to create some goals or some improvements that we want to make on the game that will be included in the final project. Check out the Blackboard for more details on the requirements for the testing and how that'll fit with the final project. But if you have questions, just let me know. So this is hopefully going to be a pretty easy and short lab. We're not going to do any coding or making new art or anything like that. We're just making a form, and we're going to add some questions and then just save the link so we can send it to people. So it should be pretty straightforward. We are going to use Google Forms. I looked into a few different options to try to add to WordPress, but they didn't really work for exactly what I wanted to do. So we're just going to stick with Google Forms. I assume that everybody has a Google account, but if you don't, it's pretty easy to set one up. And if you need help with that, just let me know. Anyway, we are going to start looking at how to set up the form. So we're doing some user testing. You can see the notes here if you want to review. I'm also uploading the video right now from the lecture in class, so I'll post that here when that's done processing. So you can review what we want to do with user testing before you get started if you want to. But I'm just going to jump right into it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to Google and use their Forms tool to create a form. The easiest way to do this is just to go to forms.google.com. I'll post a link in the video description. And that'll bring you to Google sign in. If you have a Google account, just go ahead and sign in. If you don't have one, just go ahead and make one. It shouldn't take too long. Again, if you need help with that, let me know. I'm just going to sign into my Gmail account. Hopefully I can remember, password. I think that is the right one. Okay, so this will take you into the Forms area. It's actually technically in Google Docs, but if you go to forms.google.com, that'll just bring you to the Forms app right away. You can see some forms I've created for different classes and other projects in the past. We're just gonna go ahead and create a blank form. So just click on that big plus button right there. And it's pretty straightforward. The nice thing about Google Forms is that you can actually see what the question is going to look like as you're creating it, more or less. And it does a really nice job of visualizing the responses that you get. So that's another good reason to use it. So we're just going to go ahead and ask a few questions. So the order for this doesn't really matter that much. You should, again, think about what are the most important things that you want to have in your game, and so you want to get feedback from that. So if it's really important for you that the sound is a big part of your game, make sure to ask a lot of questions about sound so that you can make improvements about the sound. I'm just going to do a few generic questions just so we can see a few different examples of the types of questions. And remember that we want to have a mixture of both quantitative and qualitative questions. So quantitative are things with numbers or scales that we can see general trends from all of the users, and qualitative answers are more verbal or written answers that give us more details about the specific experiences. So let's go ahead and start filling it out. So the first thing I want to do, since this is like the very beginning of my game development process, I want to make sure that it makes sense to people. So the first question I'm going to ask is about playability. How easy was it to play the game? So let's give this form a title first of all. So let's just say this is user testing for, and you might want to use the name of your actual game here. So people will associate the form with the game itself. I never really gave my game a name, so I'm just going to call it my game. And so let's start with our first question. So I'm going to say playability. That's just kind of the general idea. And so let's add, so we're going to make this one a multiple choice. So that's the main option here. So I'll just leave that as is. And I'm going to add the first option. So since I have a few different options, I want to be specific about what the difference between the options are. So if the game was not very playable, the user might say, I could not figure out how to play the game. Okay, so we're talking more about like the mechanics, like did I press the buttons right, etc. So let's add another option. And we don't want to overwhelm them with options. Oh, whoops, I guess there's an other option. I want to click add option. Okay, that's a little tricky. Anyway, so if they figured out how to play the game, but it was kind of hard, we can say that it was hard to figure out how to play the game. And we can add another option. It was easy to figure out how to play the game. Okay, so that'll tell us basically like how many people, since this is a multiple choice, we can see like if 10 people said it was easy and 2 people said it was hard, that's a pretty good ratio. If it's like 8 people said it was too hard and 1 person said it was easy, then that's not very good. And we're not talking about difficulty here. We're just talking about like, was it easy to start playing the game? So I want to ask a bit of a follow-up question here. I'm going to make this required. So that means that they can't submit the form until they've filled out that question. So we want to use that in some cases, but not in others. So my follow-up to this question, so I'm going to click the plus button over here to add a question. My follow-up to this question is, if it was hard, why? So I'm going to say, if it was hard to play the game, please describe why. And so this is going to be a paragraph response. Google actually kind of figured that out for me, so they put that in there. And so that's pretty much all I need. I'm not going to make this required though, because obviously if somebody said it was easy to figure it out, I don't really need to know why it was easy. It should be easy, so I'm going to stick with that. So we've got a couple questions already. Let's go ahead and preview our form. Okay, looks pretty good so far. And so let's add another question, and this time we'll do a rating. So I want to know how difficult the game was. So I'm going to add a plus here. And for this one, instead of multiple choice, I'm going to do what's called linear scale. So this is sort of like multiple choice, but it's going to be a scale of numbers and they can only choose one. So we're just going to say rate the difficulty. And let's put a label. So 1 to 5 is good. We can stick with that default. Let's put a label for 1 is too easy. The label for 5 is too hard. And let's maybe, can we add a label? I guess not. I guess that's fine. We can stick with that. Okay, so let's make this one required. And let's preview again. I like to preview stuff as I'm building it. So rate the difficulty. So 1 is too easy, 5 is too hard. So 3 is like the ideal there. So that's pretty good. We can keep going. So then I kind of want to know, how long they played the game for. This might tell me if the gameplay matches what my expectations are. So we'll go to the next question and we'll give a few options here. So we'll stick with multiple choice for this one. So I'll say, how long was your gameplay? And it changes to short answer. It's kind of trying to guess what I'm asking for, but we'll just switch it back to multiple choice. And so then we'll say less than 5 minutes is the first option, and 5 to 10 minutes is the second option, 10 to 20 minutes. That sounds like a long time, but I don't think it's that unrealistic. If it takes me, like when I was playing you guys' games the other day, I had to try a few times because I would die or something like that. So it might take you 10 minutes or so. More than 20 minutes is probably not super likely with our games, but if you add a lot of stuff in there, maybe they'll want to play more than 20 minutes. So we'll say more than 20 minutes. So I think those are enough options to capture what we will likely see. So I'm going to click required for this one. And so then I also kind of want to know if the player beat the game or reached the end. So let's add another couple questions for that. Did you beat the game? Did you reach the end? And if not, why not? So did you reach the end of the game? These are still pretty generic questions that will tell me stuff about the gameplay, but I'm not really talking about specific things like, you know, the characters or the sound or whatever. So this is just a yes or no. I don't know if there's an option for that. So I'm just gonna say yes is option 1, no is option 2. This one's required, and then the follow-up again is not going to be required, because if they reach the end of the game, then we can kind of assume that they, you know, we can assume why. So if they did not reach the game end, if not, why? And it changed that to a short answer. You might want to give them a paragraph here just to give them enough room. And this one is not going to be required. Again, I'm just giving some examples. You don't have to do exactly the same thing here, but these are some just generic things that we can kind of look for. So then I always want to have some sort of like catch-all for anything that they might say about it, because they might want to give me some feedback that doesn't fit directly into any of my other questions. So my last question, I want to just give them a chance to say whatever it is that they want. So I'm just going to say any thoughts or comments, oops, that should be or, for the game designer. I don't know why I capitalized that. And again, this is a paragraph text, and it's not required. They don't have to fill this in, but it gives them a chance to say like, oh, I really loved this part, or I really hated this part. So that'll be my last question. I don't have a lot of very specific questions in here. So if I was gonna add another question, maybe I'd put a question up here. If I want to change the order, I can just use these little dots to drag them up and down, so it's very easy. So if I wanted to ask like a more specific question, like I could say like my game is, you know, mostly about the, let's say I'm mostly interested in the narrative. So I might say something like, was the narrative clear? So I can get a sense if they understood the narrative. I might, you know, I could also ask more like evaluative questions, like what was your favorite part of the narrative, or what did you think of the story, or something like that. But I just want to know if they understood the story. So let's just make that a paragraph answer, and let's make it required. And actually, let's use more simple language there. So let's just use story instead of narrative. Narrative is a little bit, you know, of a long word. So let's say, was the story clear? So you want to add some stuff that's more specific to what's different about your game or unique about your game. So I think I'm pretty much good with this. I want to preview again and just make sure it looks okay. So that looks good. So I'm gonna get rid of this. So now we're done with the form, and we want to send it to people. So you're going to send it along with the game, which we'll talk about how to send the game to people in another video. But for the form, it's really easy. If you go to send, you can just send it directly to people's emails, or what you probably do is just get the link. You can actually shorten the URL, which is nice, and then copy it. You don't have to shorten it, but you know, that's a nice feature. And then you can just send that link to anybody. So make sure you save that, or if you want to like post it on the Discord so you can have a place to keep it, or just email it to me or whatever. Just make sure that you save that somewhere so that you can you know, get back to it. And if you created the form, you'll be able to see the responses as long as you're logged in. So you don't really need to save anything other than that. So I'm gonna close this. I actually forgot to title the game, but that looks pretty good. Okay, so then let's make some fake responses and then look at what it's going to look like when people actually respond to it. So I copied that link. I'm going to paste it in here. And so now I'm just going to fill out my own form. Obviously, somebody else is going to be doing this in real life, but let's just fill out a few fake responses, and then we can see the results. So I'm just going to fill in some random stuff. I'm just going to type blah, blah. Let's see. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that's one. I'm going to do 3 because otherwise it's not going to be super clear what's going on. So let's do different answers here. That can be the same. This person played it for a long time and didn't reach the end, and just fill in some things. And I'll do one more. This is kind of boring, but that's okay. Okay, 10 to 20 minutes. Okay, so we've got some responses. So if we go back to our other form and go to responses, here's what's really nice about the Google Forms is that we get to see these sort of graphics with our questions. So you can see the breakdown of, we had even numbers of people in terms of the playability. We had 1, 2, 3 responses in terms of difficulty, but you can see how visualizing this makes it really easy to see. Like, nobody in our fake response pool thought this was easy, so the visualizations make it a lot easier. How long was the game is pretty balanced. Did you reach the end of the game? Most people did not, apparently. And then we have other responses that you'll have to read through and kind of summarize. So that's pretty much the whole thing. Hopefully, you'll get at least like 5 to 10 people to test the game, so you can really see a wide variety of responses. And that's pretty much it. You can also look through question by question, so you can see everybody's responses to different questions, or you can look through person by person, so you can see each person's version of the form. And you can even download a spreadsheet that has everything written out in different places. We'll do a whole separate lab in terms of how to actually get all this data and post it on the Open Lab to kind of make your little user testing report. So we'll do that as a separate video. But that's basically everything that we have to do to create the form. So let me know if you have any questions, but hopefully that'll be pretty straightforward. And I'll see you guys in class.